Danny Flexen. Welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut FLEXpectations. We're here every Thursday at 4:30 PM or thereabouts to look ahead to the biggest boxing action of the weekend. And while there's two big shows in the UK this weekend, both with no fans in attendance of course because of the ongoing COVID-19 restrictions, it's only right that we start with the first UK pay-per-view event since the lockdown, and that is the one headlined by Dillian Whyte against Alexander Povetkin for the WBC Interim Heavyweight Championship, taking place at Fight Camp in the back garden of Matchroom HQ, as I'm sure everyone's aware by now. It is a meeting, in my view, between two heavyweights in the world top 10. Whyte obviously a fair bit higher up than Povetkin by most people's analysis. But Povetkin, while not the force of old perhaps, has still got plenty to offer, beating the likes of Christian Hammer, Hughie Fury in recent years. Obviously earned his shot. He's, well, I say shot, it's a WBC interim belt, but earned his chance, if you like, to co-headline the show with Whyte. Whyte, of course, been waiting in that WBC mandatory position since last July, and as the WBC #1 for a lot longer. The president of that organisation recently stated that the winner of the third fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, presuming it goes ahead, would have to meet Dillian Whyte straight away after that. And that must have been music to Whyte's ears. But he's still got to get past Povetkin. It's not an easy fight. Povetkin is very, very tough, technically skilled, robust, and can punch. Got fast hands as well. Yeah, he's advancing in age, but the main way that seems to have affected him is not so much in his speed or his punch resistance, but in his gas tank. He seems to fade after around halfway in most of his fights. He had that draw last time out with Michael Hunter. A lot of people felt Hunter was unlucky not to get the nod in that one. And Povetkin, while he started pretty well, faded down the stretch, just as he did when he was stopped by Anthony Joshua maybe 2 years ago now, without checking. Whyte, on the other hand, a lot of people were saying he didn't look great in his last fight against Marius Vac. He was carrying far too much excess weight in that one back in December. But a lot's changed since then. He's been training for months out in Portugal, warm weather climate, really whipping himself into shape. He looks good physically, and I don't think he'll fade in the same way he did against Vac, for example. And that was only an 8-rounder anyway, but I think he'll be primed physically and have that functional fitness to compete over the 12 rounds. And Whyte as a whole is a vastly improved boxer from the one we saw fall bravely to Joshua a number of years ago for the British title in what was his and Joshua's pay-per-view debut. Whyte's jab has become one of the better ones in the heavyweight division. He knows now how to box on the back foot as well as being aggressive. And his shot placement, shot selection and timing has improved perhaps most markedly of all. The thing that worries me for Whyte in this fight is the split with long-time trainer Mark Tibbs in advance of this one. He's worked out in Portugal with Xavier Miller, somebody he's worked with a number of times in the past. And I think it was a sensible move to draft in an experienced head in Dave Caldwell to help out in the corner on fight night. I think that could prove invaluable if things get tough in the trenches with a veteran, cunning campaigner like Povetkin. I think ultimately Whyte will be too fresh and too motivated to slip up in this one. A lot of variables, of course, but I think he probably gets the job done via either late stoppage or clear points win. Him pulling away a little bit, creating a bit of distance between them in the latter half of the fight. Elsewhere on the card, I know people are already aware that I've said I don't feel the card is worthy of being a pay-per-view at the full price, the normal price of around £20. I thought a discount could have been offered as a gesture by either the promoter, the broadcaster, or a combination of the two. But that aside, if you take the pay-per-view element away from it, it's a very good card. Katie Taylor, rematch with Delphine Persoon. The only drawback really is that Persoon only had 6 weeks notice this time around. Coming in, of course, when Amanda Serrano pulled out. But it's still an excellent fight. You know, Persoon was on a ridiculous winning run before she lost controversially to Taylor in their first fight, ceding her WBC lightweight title in the process and making the Irish woman an undisputed world champion at £135, of course. A lot of questions raised about Taylor on that night. We all know she's got the skills, incredible amateur, footwork, the hand speed, shot selection. But I think the key questions were, can she cope with pressure? Has she got the conditioning to last the full 10 rounds at a hard pace? And I think those questions will be answered in the rematch. I expect an improved performance from Taylor. She's a bit older, a bit more accustomed to the pro game, physically probably a bit stronger as well. And I expect it to be a bit more comfortable for her this time around. I mean, it could hardly be less comfortable than it was the first time unless she got stopped. Pursuit will obviously come in motivated. She won't have had as much notice, but she seems really determined and up for the fight, which is great to see. But I just feel Taylor has more room for improvement. Pursuit had a lot more pro fights coming into their first contest. I think Taylor's got more room for improvement and will get the job done on points, but clearly this time with no controversy. And elsewhere on the card, you've got a number of decent fights on the undercard. Not big names necessarily, but that should match up well in the ring. Zach Chelly moving back down to super middleweight after a ill-conceived foray up at light heavy that saw him lose to Cody Davis. Takes on Little Lever's Meat Cleaver, Jack Cullen, owner of one of the best nicknames in the sport. And also always an entertaining fight. So that's a good clash at super middle. Sean Del Winters, who we saw give a brave account of himself against Joseph Parker. Really good interview as well, so you'll see that on our channel tomorrow. He's come over from America to fight Dillian Whyte's heavyweight protege, Croatian Alen Babic. That will be an interesting one as well. Babic is only 3-0. Sean Del Winters coming off a fight with a former world champion in Parker. He's not come from America, from Chicago, just to make up the numbers. He's brought Montel Griffin, well-known 1990s light heavyweight, with him, or early 2000s maybe. So he's come to really give it a go, and he might even be a favourite in some areas against someone who's only had 3 pro fights, albeit a very good amateur, Alen Babic. And then we've got what I feel is on paper the very best and most competitive fight over the whole of Fight Camp, including the non-pay-per-view shows. And really one for the hardcore fans. They're not very well known outside of that select bunch. However, it should be an excellent fight, both in terms of their records and how the styles should mesh. And that's at welterweight between Luther Clay, who's on a great run of form, and Chris Kongo, who's unbeaten but hasn't really been tested yet, but has been touted around gyms throughout the country as being a real talent for many, many years now. He's 27. Luther Clay, despite being the more experienced as a pro, is 24. Clay, intelligent boxer puncher. Kongo, a bit more rangy, but got power in those hands, physically strong. It's a really, really intriguing fight, and if you're not going to watch, well, I was going to say, if you're not going to watch any other fight, watch that one. But I suppose once you've paid for the pay-per-view, you're going to watch every fight, aren't you? But yeah, best fight on the card, in my view. And as I've already stated before, I probably won't be buying the card. So I'm a bit gutted to miss it, but I'm sure I'll read all about it on social media. So that'll be good enough. So that's the big pay-per-view show at the weekend, but it's not the only show in the UK on Saturday night. Out in Redditch, in a TV studio, we have the return of UK boxing to terrestrial television since the lockdown. On Channel 5, starting at 10 o'clock. And SecondsOut have been behind the scenes. We'll be covering all the build-up as part of our partnership with Hennessy Sports Boxing Unlocked. You can see some of the content's up already. We'll be covering everything from the weigh-in, behind the scenes on fight night, post-fight interviews, the lot. And you can tune in for the actual fight action on Channel 5. You've got good enough undercard, Michael Hennessy Jr. in a decent test. The return of Isaac Chamberlain after a long time out. Idris Virgo. A really well-matched Midlands area title fight between unbeaten Conor Walker and only once defeated Casey Benjamin. They're very friendly, but I expect that to go out the window once they get in the ring. And the main event is a really, really good one in my view. Shakan Pitters, unbeaten, Ultimate Boxer winner, vying for the vacant British Light Heavyweight Championship against Chad Sugden. Fast, good footwork, former kickboxer, earned this chance by virtue of an upset 8-round draw with Craig Richards, who was supposed to oppose Pitters for the title. He drew with Craig Richards back in December. I was ringside for that one. A draw looked fair to me. Sugden always seemed like a potential banana skin for Richards. And yeah, he got bloodied and he got marked up, but still was well worth the draw. Fast combinations on the inside. Did really well, very impressive. Pitters has done nothing wrong as a pro so far. He's very confident and relaxed going into this. Sugden a bit more fired up perhaps, or certainly on the surface. So I think that one could turn into a real war from quite early on in the fight. So it's well worth tuning into. We just hope, as fans and journalists and anyone who wants to watch the best of both bills, we hope that the main fights don't clash. You've got to think that it will be around 10-15 in the ring for the Hennessy Sports main event. Let's hope Whyte Povetkin isn't the same. But fingers crossed, people out there will be able to watch both. That's all I've got to say about the two shows, but I'd like to know what you guys think. What's the best fight of the weekend? Which one are you most looking forward to and why? And what are your predictions for the 3 main fights? So Whyte Povetkin, Taylor Pursoon 2, and Pitters Sugden. Let me know in the comments below. I'll respond to some of them, as is the usual process. And I'll be back on Monday with reflections at 4:30 p.m. to look back on the shows. One that I'll have seen reported on, and one that I'll actually watched, of course, before anyone decides to ask about that in the comments. And I'll be back next Thursday for the next FLEXpectations, again at 4:30 p.m. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.